Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin and for today's video I'm going to be bringing you my fail of a March reading wrap up. So in the month of March I had a lot of unexpected things happen and that kind of prohibited the amount that I ended up reading. So in the month of March I had my spring break, which you would think would give me more time to read, but I ended up working so much over spring break, and when I wasn't working my friends wanted to hang out with me, and since I'm always at school, I obviously wanted to hang out with them too, and so there was that. And before that, I hit my head really hard, and I ended up getting diagnosed with migraines, and so that was a week of my reading gone. And then at the end of March, some really upsetting things happened that I'm not able to talk about yet, without getting really upset, and so I'm not going to. I'm okay, obviously, but I'm just not ready to talk about it. I will talk about it eventually, just not yet. So, March was just really unexpected and not the best month for me, and it's so weird because March is normally my favorite month. It's the first month of spring, and it just generally makes me very happy. Not this year. March was like, no. So I'm hoping that April will be better, but with all of that being said, I did manage to finish reading 3 books and get a decent amount of the way through a couple of other books. So I'll talk about the books that I didn't finish quite yet first, and then I will show you the books that I actually did complete. One of the books that I started in March that I didn't complete was The Cruel Prince. I'm still currently reading it, obviously, which is why there is no dust jacket, but I got 110 pages into this. Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I am really enjoying this. This is about a girl named Jude whose parents get murdered right in front of her and her younger sister and her older, or not her younger sister, her twin sister and her older sister, who is half fairy, by her mom's ex-husband and her half-sister's dad, and then they get taken away into the world of fairy, and now she wants to prove how strong she is to all of these fairies, even though she's human, and so she's significantly weaker than them, and she's grown up hearing that she's growing up having heard that her whole life, and it's just really frustrating to her. And so that's as far as I've gotten, obviously not very far, but I am really enjoying this, and I really will hope to finish this in April, but this is not my April TBR. The other book that I made significant progress in the month of March was An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. This is not a book that I ever thought I would pick up. It just didn't really intrigue me for whatever reason, even though it is high fantasy and it sounds like something I would like. To me, it just didn't, and so I was in the bookstore. I didn't know what I wanted to read, but I didn't want to read anything on my shelves, and I picked this up because I was like, you know what? Everyone loves this. You may as well just read the first couple of chapters. You have some time to kill. What is the point? What's the harm? And so I picked it up, read the first couple of chapters, and I was hooked. And so I am now 226 pages into this and absolutely loving it, flying through it, regardless of everything that has happened. And again, not my April TBR, but I will be continuing this. It's April 2nd, so obviously I'm continuing it. Now, on to the first book that I actually finished in the month of March. I finished this on March 5th, and that was its release date, which is the only way I know, and that is The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one. I haven't flagged it yet. I have every page that I want to flag written down in my notes. I just haven't gotten there yet, so don't worry. I did really enjoy this book. This is the 3rd installation in the poetry series collection. I don't know, Women Are Some Kind of Magic, I think, by Amanda Lovelace. This was my absolute favorite. It incorporated a lot of, other authors, which was really cool, but I did end up preferring Amanda Lovelace's poems that she wrote herself. And it also incorporated and alluded to a lot of different Disney themes and movies and just stories in general, and I absolutely loved that as well. And sorry, my camera cut out. Anyway, as I was saying, something that isn't important to this, but something that I just thought was a really cool touch, was that the font is actually purple to match the cover of the book, and I don't know, that meant a lot to me, and I squealed when I saw it. But yeah, I think I gave this like 4.5 or 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this. This was for sure my favorite of all 3 of them, and just the most hopeful, and I don't know. There were a lot more poems that I could connect to in this one as opposed to the other 2, and I am very intrigued to go back and reread the other 2 to see if I feel like any more connection, because I read them at a very different time in my life, and so who knows? Like, poetry is a very personal thing, and so I think it's cool that you might reread it and find some new gems. The next book that I finished in the month of March is like a new favorite book of all time, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. This doesn't sound like anything I should enjoy based on my reading taste, but this is like seriously a new favorite book. It was so good. This, if you don't know, is an adult science fiction horror novel. And Mira Grant is Seanan McGuire's pen name. It's a known fact. It's on the back of the book. And I absolutely loved it. I've never read anything by Mira Grant nor Seanan McGuire in any pen name. And this book is about a large cast of characters that are all... Okay, so basically, in 2015, in this book, there was a ship called the Atargatis. I literally don't know how to pronounce this ship's name. Atargatis, Artigatis, I really don't know. But they went out to the Mariana Trench to make a mockumentary about mermaids, and they didn't think they were going to find anything, and then every single body was lost, and nobody could find it, and the ship showed up to shore a few days later, completely, like, destroyed, but it was still there. And there was very little footage recovered from this mission, and people can see something that looks like a mermaid, but some people call it a hoax, some people call it real. And so in this book, we follow a few doctors and like marine biologists, a sirenologist, like just a bunch of scientists, as well as like a cameraman, some bounty hunters, and like a personality, so someone who talks to a camera professionally. And they are on like round 2 of this mission on this ship called the Melusine to go back out into the Mariana Trench, still don't know how to pronounce that either, and like do what the first mission set out to do, but taking it a lot more seriously and being much more prepared about it. This book was so good. There are articles in it. It switches perspectives pretty frequently. It's written in the 3rd person, so it is a lot easier, I find, to like tell who is talking when, or like whose perspective you're following when. There was perspective in here that I didn't like, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just want this to be over. And then the person died really quickly, which I feel like is not a spoiler because 1, I didn't tell you who it was, and 2, it's a horror novel, so like people die. This book is terrifying. Mermaids, my new biggest fear. I have a reading vlog where I was reading it, like, there are a couple of them, because it took me a while to finish this book because I had to keep putting it down, but I loved it. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and the reason that I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 stars, even though it is one of my favorite books, is because there were some things about it, like, that I didn't like, whether it be certain characters or just certain things that, like, while I was reading, it made me very, very uncomfortable because it talks about, like, some things that are seriously going on in the world, and whenever I read about that in any book, it makes me really uncomfortable, and that is just a personal preference thing. So when I got to those parts, I learned to just skip over those paragraphs, and it was fine. But like, other than that, I really did enjoy this book, and I highly recommend it if it sounds something like it might mildly be interesting, because like from page 73 on, it is action, and even the parts where like they're talking about all of the science behind everything that's happening in the ocean, I was still on the edge of my seat, and it was still super intriguing, and I love this book. I really want to do a review, even though I basically did a really long one here. I'm sorry, but I also tabbed it, so I think that'll be really cool to reread it. My mom wants to read this, and so I haven't been able to talk about it to anyone. that cares at least, and so like I'm dying. Please, if you haven't and you're able to, read this book so I can talk about it. Like, it's eating away at me. And the last book that I ended up reading in the month of March was kind of a disappointment, but I started reading An Ember in the Ashes right after, so like I didn't end the month on a sour note in my opinion. And that was The Assassination of Franklin by M.T. Anderson and Eugene Yelchin. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot more in the beginning than I did in like the end and the middle of the story. But what's cool about this, and the reason that I did end up the reason it got 2 stars instead of 1 and I like didn't completely hate it, was because I, 1, didn't completely hate it, I just didn't enjoy it, and 2, it's told with 2 perspectives in 2 different formats. So 1 is told in text, and then you also get, I guess it's 3 different perspectives. 1 is text and it's basic story. The other is like letters written from like the boss of the spy, if that makes sense. If you like read for a little bit, you'll understand what I'm talking about. To the king. And then the other is pictures from the spy reporting back to his kingdom on what he is like seeing and everything like that. It's really interesting because the text and the pictures go against each other, and it's really cool to see the perspective. And something that I really, really loved about that was like, it's very eye-opening in the way that different cultures might see different things going on, and like cultural differences and all of that, but it's like fantasy, so it's not too deep. And I think that this will be really cool to share with my kids one day, and just that like it might give them a neat perspective. That is the one thing that I really, really enjoyed about this book, and the one reason that I will keep this book for a while, just so that my kids can enjoy it too and read that. And like, I don't know, I just thought it was done well in that aspect, but I didn't necessarily enjoy the plot of it, which I haven't told you. It's about this elfin emissary that goes over into goblin territory, and they are enemies, and this goblin is hosting this elf, and this elf is actually secretly a spy for his kingdom, and like they become unlikely friends, even though like the goblin really, really wants to and the elf is not with it. I don't know. I'm not explaining this well. I'm out of breath, and I think it's time for me to go. These are all of the books that I either started or finished throughout the month of March. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys had an amazing reading month, whether you read 1 book or 600. Like, congratulations if you read 600. That is impressive. And I feel like unless you're reading picture books, literally might be impossible. Maybe you did it though. If you did, that's impressive. Really proud of you. If you read 1 book, really proud of you. Anyway, I'm gonna go, and I hope to see you all in another video soon. Bye, guys!